There have been transport difficulties for a number of people. Welcome to the Planning Applications Committee. I'm Councillor Mackover. I'm chairing tonight. To my right are my fellow councillor colleagues who will be making the decisions for the cases, and on my left are the officers and legal team who would be presenting the cases and advising us. We have a number of speaker cases, which is why I think a number of you will be there. These may go quite speedily because we have altogether 19 decisions to make this evening, 19 cases to decide. So don't be too worried. We have read the papers and we have got all the information from officers. So we will, there might not be a lot of questions for you on every topic, but we will hear what you say in your cases. Just so we'll talk about the running order in a second, but let me just go through the formal items. Apologies for absence. We have one apologies for lateness from Councillor Zvedenyuk. Declarations of interest. Do councillors have any declarations of interest? Any other declarations? Okay, that's no and no. Minutes of the previous meetings. I'll just read out. We've got two sets that I will ask you. There was the meeting of the 12th of August. I believe, Councillor Idris, you were on this with me. Can I sign those minutes off? Okay. And second set of minutes for the 24th of June. Councillor Dent-Code, I think you were with me for that meeting. Can we sign those minutes off? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Right, so just people are aware of the running order for the speaker cases. The rest we'll go through. We're actually starting with a condition case, which is straightforward on Ledbury. And then we're waiting for one objector on Gledhow. So we might move that case a little bit later. So then the first speaker case will be Manresa Road, and then Drayton Court, Latimer Road, Gordon Place. Right. So let's kick off, please, officers, with 45 Ledbury Road, just the condition discharge.
Thank you, Chairman. So the first item on tonight's agenda is the application at 45 Ledbury Road. This is a discharge of conditions application related to a revised operational management strategy. There's no speakers tonight, so I'm happy to take any questions in due course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I actually sat on this case. It was a very detailed discussion, and I think on this, the reason that we don't have any speakers is because there's been good work, as I understand it, between Councillor Gardner and the objectors and the applicants, and a very detailed report has been produced that has satisfied everyone. So unless there are any questions, questions, Councillor Dent-Code.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one question for the officers, if I may, which is about the enforcement of the conditions, because I've been through them and they're quite extensive. But how would they be enforced? It is, it is a very, very busy, dense area, residential area, and obviously that's a huge concern. So how will this be enforced? Because that is always a sticking point.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Something I forgot to mention earlier, and it's really important. I just draw members' attention to the addendum report, which notes that a final revised operational management plan was received following the publication of the officer report. This was merely to clarify an item of contention, but the crux of the report is the same. To answer your question, it's enforceable in the same way that other conditions or breaches of planning control are enforced. If there's a complaint or somebody raises concern, with our enforcement team, they'll open a case and investigate precisely what has been complained about. So that's the same for the same procedure, effectively.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, are people ready to make a decision? The officer recommendation is to approve the discharge of this condition. Can I see those in favour? Okay, that is approved. Thank you very much. We're going straight to 15 Manresa Road, please.
Thank you again, Chairman, and sorry for the musical chairs. The next item on tonight's agenda is the application at 15 Mansry Road. I'm just going to flick through. There we go. The application site is located on the western side of the road, and the building is Grade 2 listed and within the Chelsea Park and Carlisle Conservation Area. The building was originally constructed as the Chelsea Public Library in 1890 and 1891. But has since been converted to accommodate the use of the premises as a school. Here are some photographs of the site for context. The proposed development that we're considering tonight involves external works to the rear of the building, including the removal of a plant enclosure and equipment, the resurfacing of the playground, and the addition of steps and hand railing, and the installation of a wall-mounted condenser unit. These works can be seen here on the proposed floor plans and here on the proposed side elevation. It is the officer's conclusion that these are all minor alterations and additions to the existing school, which would not harmfully impact the special or historic interest of the listed building, or the character, appearance, and significance of the wider conservation area. In addition, the proposed works are unlikely to harmfully impact the living conditions of neighbouring properties when compared to the existing lawful use. The officer's recommendation is therefore to grant permission. And this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We'd like to hear from the objectors. I've got Angus Murray and Jeremy Stockeld. Can you just show where you are? Right, thank you very much. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
So when the old library became a school in 2009, at the time the council granted a lease for the school and included in the lease a restriction to say that the school should not make an unreasonable amount of noise in the playground and should not use the playground for sporting activities. And the restriction was included to protect local residents, particularly those who live very close to the playground. So we've lived with noise from the Hampshire School for 14 years or so. They play in break time and we live with that, that's fine. Since Francis Holland School took over last year, the noise has significantly increased. And one of the reasons for this is that the school has been holding lessons and sports activities in the playground. So it's not just playground noise at break times, it's significant noise during the mornings and afternoons. The school plans to paint sports markings on the new playground surface, and we've been told by the head of the school that would include, for example, a netball court to facilitate even more sports activities. So we don't object to the application in principle, although to resurface the playground, although Mr. Murray has significant concerns about the way that has been implemented. But we do object to the inclusion of sports markings, and so if the committee is minded to grant the application, we would request that it's on the condition that sports markings are not included in the playground. That would be consistent with the terms of the restriction in the 2009 lease, which the council thought appropriate to include to protect the neighbours from the noise.
Thank you very much. Could we hear from the agent? I've got Nick Rich and Claire Shaw.
Sorry, I'm Angus Murray.
I thought you'd finished your part. Okay, right.
I apologise.
You've got 1 minute 10.
If you could just put the screen back one to the aerial photograph would be most kind. If I could just make the following comments. First of all, number one, all the works you are proposing to approve or disapprove tonight have already been completed. The school has completely ignored your process. The second part is that the school have removed a large tree, which you will see. There you can see a tree, which is behind the school. I own the house directly between the houses and the school. So they removed the tree and the large wooden structure, which had permeable surface in it. They've created a flat new surface with concrete, which is not permeable. There is 300 square metres of brand new space with rubber on top and now a green surface. The problem is the entrance to my house and the entrance to the hospital are physically below that sports field. There is no drainage at all to take the compensation for the water that now has no ability to run off anywhere but into my house or into the school. Just to give you a reference, 300 square metres in a once in a ever increasing flood of normal rainfall which occurred in 2021 would be 40 tonnes of rain in an hour, and I've had a structural engineer indicate that I would need 2 major pumps at 6 litres a second to be able to compensate for that event. If therefore you are again minded to approve this, it would be my strong recommendation it's not done today, that proper drainage is put in place to protect the MRI machines in the Lister Hospital, who I also talk on behalf of, and my house, which sadly goes 3 levels into the ground, so that I'll end up with a flooded basement.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll pick some of those up. Could we now hear from the agent and applicant? I've got Nick, Rich and Claire Shaw.
Yes, hello.
Okay,
Hi,
thank you.
Rich,
Please,
hi.
you've got 3 minutes as well.
Okay. I'm the architect for Francis Holland School, speaking on behalf of the school's applicant. This application is for very modest works to the rear playground of the Grade 2 star listed former Chelsea Public Library. The proposals are straightforward: resurfacing the existing playground with a new green polymeric surface, improving safety and drainage, removing an intrusive and outdated air handling unit and its unsightly timber and brick enclosure, installing a much smaller condenser unit in a discrete location, and improving access by rationalising the ramp with a handrail and introducing new steps for safer use. These are all minor interventions carefully designed to respect the heritage of the listed building and its setting. RBKC's Senior Design and Heritage Officer raised no objections subject to conditions and informatives, as recorded in the published officer's report. The heritage statement concludes that proposals will have a minimal neutral impact on the building and the conservation area. In fact, they'll enhance the setting by removing elements that currently detract from the building's character. The officer's report is clear. The scheme safeguards the historic and architectural interest of the building, preserves the character of the conservation area, and will improve the day-to-day functioning of the school, and it's therefore recommended for approval. I'm aware some neighbours will speak about wider concerns relating to access and the lease, and with respect, these are not planning or heritage matters before you. The application is purely for these small physical improvements to the playground, which have been assessed on their planning and conservation merits and found acceptable. Francis Holland Prep School is a valued part of the community, providing education to local families, investing significantly in this important listed building. And the school takes seriously its role as custodian of the former public Chelsea Library, and these works represent another step in ensuring the building continues to thrive, Chelsea Public Library. In summary, the proposals are modest, sensitive, beneficial to the building and supported by your officers, and I hope the committee will feel able to support that recommendation. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's both your parts. Okay, thank you. All right, I think I'll just point out, because it was an important point, before we go to questions, that we are not here to make any sort of discussion, because it isn't a planning matter, on lease conditions. That's a civil matter, and it can't come into what we've got to decide tonight. But there are a few things to unpick in terms of drainage, particularly, and some resurfacing that was being mentioned. So, questions? Yes, Councillor Oretti.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the applicant. Would the resurfacing have existing marking, or do you have markings in your previous setup? Or you just doing a resurfacing and just replicating the marking? Thank you.
The application does include for some discrete sport markings over on the new surfacing, and there were not sports markings before.
So any of the are there any additional markings other than the previous markings?
Yes. So yes, the sport marking was not there previously. There are new markings for sport. Yeah.
Can I have a counter question to the objectors? Thank you. So one of your concerns is about the sports marking. Is that because it encourages the kids or whoever more sort of playable situation? Is that what your concerns, or?
So I guess a few points. One is that the noise from the school is not just limited to break times now. It's continuous throughout the morning and the afternoon. The other point is that the sports lessons are actually very intrusive. You can hear what's said throughout our house. You can tune out the sort of general playground noise at break time, but if a teacher is shouting or speaking very loudly and the kids are speaking in unison, all of that transmits through our houses. So it is quite disruptive, and it's a big change from how it was operated for the 14 years when Hampshire School were in place.
So your concern is not really marking, it's about the activity and the noise?
Our concern is the noise, but if you allow sports markings to be included on the playground surface, we think the noise, that will just facilitate sports activities and increase the noise
Thank
to
you.
a level which is intolerable for the residents.
Thank you.
Councillor Dencode.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was similar concerns to those of Councillor Aretti. I'm imagining that as neighbours, you know when playtime is and then playtime finishes, and then that has expanded over the years. But for ball sports, for example, that would be happening throughout the day in a rota, wouldn't it? It wouldn't just be playtime. There would be a rota of sports throughout the day, presumably, so it would be almost never ending. Is that correct? That it would be?
That's a concern, and that's a change from how it was previously under the Hampshire School regime, and it's changed when the Francis Holland School took over in September last year.
Okay.
And our concern is that this will just, the sports markings will mean that this becomes a sports field for the children for use for the whole day.
Okay, so I mean, even though obviously we're looking at the surface, this is, and maybe I'll have an officer's question afterwards, but it changes the use of the whole space.
It does.
Thank you.
And interestingly, the plan...
So, I know we're going to have to be quite short in answers because we've got a lot of cases, but if you could move right close to the microphone because we're having a difficulty hearing.
It's interesting that the plan that the school included does not include any sports markings. It's a plain green surface.
Councillor Idris.
Could I respond?
And yes, could all three of you turn your microphones off because it only works when you've got one speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back because I'm not clear on the sports marking. My understanding is the following: without the marking being there permanently, you get an allocated time for sports activity. But with the marking being there permanently, that means sports lessons will take a sort of rotation and they will be all day long. Am I correct in thinking that? To either of you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy to answer that one. We have written to the gentleman on my left to say that the sports markings are not an essential addition for this area. We're very happy for them not to be there and it just be the green space it was before. We actually timetable sports lessons off-site for the majority of the students, apart from the early years children, because they're very dinky and young, so we don't take those off for sports.
Is that sports taking, is it a designated time of the day where neighbors can know what time it is, or is it all day long?
No, I need to check with the head of the school, because our understanding is not the same as what's been presented to you about sports happening all day. So we have playtimes, which we're very happy to share with the neighbours, and we take our children off-site to do sports. So we're very happy to share with the neighbours what times they are.
I just want to be the actual use of this is not a new permission to be used for this. To help you understand the extent of it, then ask away. But we're not going to be able to work in a new sort of operating plan for the whole area.
My final question, I hope, is drainage-wise. What are the guarantees that the method of drainage you're using or you're proposing to use right now will not affect the neighbors by flooding in the future, for instance? Because we had a case whereby somebody had to use a huge sucking system to get the water out. So what guarantees can you give to your neighbors that you're not going to be flooding them in the future?
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to just provide a tiny bit of context to that. Mr. Murray has quite rightly stated that we commenced some work, but where I don't agree is that we did that outside of your process. So we have written communication from Genevieve confirming that we could do the resurface because it was like for like and that didn't require planning permission. So we started the works at the start of the summer to clear the existing layers, and unfortunately due to some challenges we experienced, we couldn't finish that work, so we were left with a playground of rubble. So we had to implement an interim measure to level out the surface, which was essential, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to open because it was too dangerous for the children. So there's an interim surface been put down so that we could reopen and let the children back in. Drainage has been put in place to ensure that the water runs off, and we have followed all of the advice given by external experts for that drainage. However, we have also booked a topographical survey and a full drainage survey which has been commissioned and will come back in a fortnight, and there may well be additional recommendations for additional draining as a result, and we will of course implement that following any advice we're given. So hopefully that provides reassurance that we will do that for this interim measure. Obviously, if you approve the original plan put forward, that's a different surface. It's a permeable surface.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move to officers now, because I think we've had a good airing of these comments. So officers, just picking up on what we've heard, maybe just confirm that whatever the terms of the lease are, that's not for us to consider. The second is satisfaction from officer and from our experts' point of view on flood risk and drainage. And the third point, which maybe you can pick up, is and we'll see whether members have want to pick up on the dropping off the sports markings, whether that's something that can be accommodated in the recommendation at this stage.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, to cover off a few of these points, just to confirm, you are correct. Any legal restrictions in the lease sit outside of the planning process. The use of that space, that outdoor space, for the children as part of the school doesn't in itself require planning permission. And the resurfacing of that surface doesn't require planning permission either. It's included in the description for completeness, but also because it would require listed building consent. But the school could resurface its outdoor space like for like or similar without planning permission. Whether there's markings on there or not as well wouldn't require planning permission in its own right. If these plans are approved, they would be approved without any markings anyway. So you wouldn't be approving sports markings. But if the school decided to add some later on, that wouldn't require planning permission. To talk about drainage, again, because the resurfacing wouldn't require planning permission in its own right, the policy around flooding and drainage wouldn't be triggered. However, this is an important issue, but to confirm, they are replacing hardstanding for hardstanding, and the material they have proposed is generally a permeable material. However, if members are concerned about that, I think it would be reasonable to include a condition that it remains permeable, for instance. I hope that covers all the questions.
Very helpful answers. Any questions from officers, or does that help you along the way on this?
Sorry, just the additional question about the markings.
Apologise, I thought I covered it. So there's no markings shown on the proposed drawings. So if they are approved, that we're not approving them. But if the school did decide to add markings to its playground, that in itself wouldn't require planning permission. But that's not what's being proposed under the current plans.
I apologise. Can I just...
it's very strictly the case that we can't take any contributions from the floor once we've moved away from the speaker issue.
It's factually incorrect. It's concrete.
Yeah. So
it's been laid.
Yeah, it doesn't help to overtalk us now, because we've got to work through the details. I apologise for that. I know that everyone is very sensitive about everything, but we have a strict process that we have to follow of when we can take interventions. Right. So just summarising where I think we are, there've been sort of comprehensive answers from officers. I think what I understood from it is that there are no markings proposed in this application. So by granting the application, we're not granting markings. And I don't think from what I've heard, there doesn't seem to be a planning way in which we can stop markings being put on. It may be that you want to add an advisory saying that any increased use of the facility should be sort of carefully considered with neighbours or something like that, but it doesn't affect what they're doing. So, do you have any comments on anything we should add in terms of this? Councillor Retty, yeah.
It's just the point about the drainage and the material used to make sure that it is permeable, so that drainage is achievable. That's my main concern.
So could we add a condition on permeability of surfaces to be maintained?
Yes, I think we could request details of permeability. We could request details within 3 months following the permission. That's something we can look in, assess, or we can condition it to be a permeable surface, or both, essentially.
I think my members are indicating to me that they would like a condition where details of permeability to be submitted. Just looking at legal team here.
Details of permeability and any change in surface water runoff or something like drainage of the site, effectively. Yeah. Fiona, please. Yeah.
I was just going to add, Chairman, if it's concrete as existing, we can't get the details of permeability, but it would be details of measures to deal with surface water runoff. I think that's the best way of wording it, because you're considering the concrete or the surface as it is at the moment.
Yes, this is a complicated site, and so we can't make one simple rule. But I would propose that officers can clarify the wording on that, because it is quite technical, but they've got our understanding on what's trying to be achieved. With that in mind, are members ready to make a decision both on the planning application and the listed building consent? So we do the planning application first. So I'm proposing, yes, please, with the condition on the details on permeability and water runoff and surfaces that we've heard detailed. Can I see those in favour of the planning application? Okay, the planning application is granted. And now the same question for the listed building consent. Can I see And that won't have a condition because that's a runoff is a planning not listed building. Can I see those in favour of the listed building consent? Thank you. That is granted. If we're ready, please now to move on to Penthouse Drayton Court.
Sorry, Chairman, which application now? The Glenhouse Gardens or Drayton Court? Sorry.
I think I haven't heard anyone appear for the objector arrive yet. Can I just check? Stella Mann is not here. I can't see that she is. So we'll just keep running through the order for the speaker cases in case Stella is delayed and does come. So we're looking at Penthouse of Drayton Court, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to bring members' attention to the addendum report. This application is seeking planning permission for creation of a roof terrace with associated screening and planting. I'll run some slides by members, hopefully you can see them. So the site location is outlined in red. You can see the area view around it as well on this screen. This slide shows the application site. With the existing roof access to the flat roof and the existing penthouse. Another site showing the site photographs showing the application site as well as the neighboring properties. This slide shows the existing and proposed plans. Members can see the extent of the proposed terrace, which is proposed to be set away from the site rear edges of the building. These are the existing and proposed elevation. The one on the top is the existing with the existing windows, and the one on the bottom is the proposed with the trellis that is being proposed, the planters, and the railings around. These are the existing sections. Proposed sections, again, showing the proposed boundary treatment for the terrace. And again, existing and proposed sections. And the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. We've got an objector, Dr. Diamond. Can you just... Hello, thank you very much. You have 3 minutes, and you've got your microphone button so we can hear you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm Dr. Diamond. I just want to thank Councillor Rossi, who attended the property today, as no planning officer seemed to have visited the property to discuss it with many objectors to this proposal. We are not happy for this roof garden terrace to go ahead for a number of reasons. In my report on the system, I elaborated on a lot of reasons. However, tonight I just want to focus on 2 main reasons: noise pollution and safety issues, as there's a high risk of possible fall from the roof. Firstly, the noise issue. The agent for change of the London Plan Party says boroughs should not normally permit development proposals that have not clearly demonstrated how noise and other nuisances will be mitigated and managed. There's no noise assessment, no evidence of any mitigation measures for the noise. The whole area around both sides of that building are enclosed, and it's like an amphitheatre where all sounds are amplified. We already have had previous visits from the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea noise nuisance team and noise pollution team because houses in Harley Gardens have made loud noise, which has been amplified in both areas on the sides of 1 to 14 Drayton Court, which has affected many, many residents. And we would like a proper noise assessment to be carried out before planning permission is granted. Going to my second issue, the safety of a possible fall from the roof. There's no railing protection around the roof. There is an attempt at railing around this proposed terrace, whereby initially there were going to be screens, which seems to have changed to trellises for plants to grow, but this is not high enough to prevent people from climbing over onto the actual roof.
Just to say, you've got 15 seconds.
Thanks. And we are concerned with parties, alcohol, abuse, people daring to walk to the edge, and we are concerned of people falling off the roof and death or quadriplegia happening. The terrace area does not prevent.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes now, okay. But I think we've got your point on those risks, and it may be that there are questions that come to you that sort of pick out some of those issues. Now, for the applicant, I've got Rupert Clark.
Thank you, Chair.
And Dr. Diamond, if you could turn your mic off, then, because only one works at a time. Thank you.
I'm Rupert Clark, the owner of the application property. I'm seeking your permission to create a modest external terrace space at the rear of my flat, which is above part of the existing flat roof. At the present time, my flat does not benefit from any external space. I am proposing that the terrace is screened to prevent overlooking toward my neighbours' windows and to provide privacy for the terrace itself. The terrace would be well set in from the edges of the roof so that it would not be a prominent feature. New planters are proposed to the southwest and northwest sides to further soften the appearance and add some greenery at roof level. As the rear of my flat faces southwest, it receives a good level of direct sun throughout the day. Although only 2.8 metres deep, the proposed terrace space would be sufficient to accommodate a small table and chairs, and so allow us to take advantage of this southerly aspect. It would be a pleasant place to sit out and enjoy the sun and fresh air. Your case officer did visit the flat and gained access out onto the roof as part of his review of the application. His committee report is carefully considered, and as you will have noted at paragraph 1.1, he summarises that the proposed terrace has been sensitively designed to safeguard the living conditions of surrounding neighbours. I hope the committee may agree with this assessment and support the recommendation to grant my application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for both your comments. Questions from members? Councillor Dentcode.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask Dr. Diamond. So we're getting two stories here. One is people sitting out quietly and enjoying the sun. Another one is of loud noises and social events. So has that been a regular occurrence? Because that obviously makes a difference. The intended use of this terrace is obviously what will affect you most.
Many residents are very concerned about the noise. This penthouse has been on the market for a while now, where they're trying to sell it. This garden is just being put there, we believe, to enable the sale of the penthouse, and we don't know who else is going to come in and buy it. We are very concerned about parties and people walking around. We've had, as I said, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea having to visit our building many, many times to stop loud music and noise from adjacent buildings. So this is a deep concern, and we don't believe a noise assessment has been done and must please be done to enable us to enjoy.
Just to keep things brief, we heard that before, just not to be rude, but just...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Aretti, please.
Thanks, Chair. question to the applicant. There's a setback. Do you know how far is the setback from the external edge of the building, which would, presumably from your statement saying it would safeguard the visibility, like concerns about privacy? Thanks.
I'm just getting this from the report, but it said the proposed terrace would be set in approximately 5.6 metres away from the southeastern elevation and approximately 7.3 metres away from the northwest elevation. The proposed terrace would be set in approximately 7.6 metres away from the nearest window at numbers 15 to 28 Drayton Court and approximately 7.4 metres away from the southeast elevation of Priory Mansions to the northwest.
That answers my question, thank you. Just to counter one to the objector, that's quite a big setback. I mean, in terms of privacy, I don't see how that will cause overlooking. Thank you.
We are not, many are questioning the privacy issue. This is not one of our concerns because we are below the penthouse and the sound bounces off the wall into all our flats. And that is the concern, a massive concern.
Yes, Councillor Idris.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the applicant. You said you talked something about planting in the roof. Do you have an idea what type of plants are you going? Are they going to be big plants, maybe absorb the noise, or are they going to be small shrubs? Because the space 2.8 is not that much of a space. But what kind of planting and what kind of vegetation were you planning to plant?
We're really flexible on the planting. Be open to suggestions. It's actually a planter on the side, on the sides of the terrace. So we've actually got 2.8 metres of depth for the terrace itself, and then it's the planter. So, but I haven't got that far as to which plants.
Have you considered pollinators at all?
I'd be happy.
That would be a wonderful thing to consider them. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I just add one thing really quickly? There's never been a noise problem with the flat in all the time that I've owned it.
That's very helpful to understand as well. Thank you. Okay, so questions to officers, please. Councillor Denko, do you want to have more questions? To officers, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Two quick ones. Can we please have a noise assessment added? And I'm really amazed that we're not having, that there's no discussion about the about installing safety railings. I thought that would be absolutely 100% necessary in any kind of roof terrace. I'm really quite surprised about that. I thought it would be a necessity rather than just having planters or something. I'm quite surprised by that. Perhaps you could fill me in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, happy to answer the questions. I might start with the railings first and hopefully members can see it. The application is proposing 1.1 meter railings around the terrace that complies with building control regulations in terms of the safety element. So around the terrace there will be screening, not just the planters, there will be also a physical railings and a trellis on one side. Hopefully that answers that question. In terms of the noise, that's something we would request for plant equipment rather than a terrace itself. We would think more about the context. But I would like to bring members' attention to the office's report. We have assessed the noise impact on the neighbouring properties in paragraph 6.11 and within the response to the objections. And the office has concluded that given the distance between the neighbouring property and the terrace itself and the size of it, we didn't have a concern there will be more than enough noise to recommend the refusal. So hopefully that answers both questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'd probably just add a comment just in my own experience, and there are hundreds of modest-sized roof terraces or balconies in my ward, and since 2011 when I became a councillor, I've not ever had an issue raised to me about noise from a modest-sized terrace or balcony like this. It's more of the case that comes from large gardens because it has an ability for a large number of people to gather, but it's very infrequent. Any more questions to officers? Okay. All right. I think we're at a point where we're ready to make a decision. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour?
Chair,
yeah.
Did you want informative about the pollinators?
Yeah.
In this council, it should be a no-brainer that we need to have pollinators as much as we humanly possible. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
yes,
yeah, that
that's
would be
right,
informative.
And I also want to say thank you to the objector and the applicant for the reasonable conversation. It's hopefully this will provide some assurance anyway. So with the pollinator advisory, informative, can I see those in favour? That application is granted. Now move to Public House, Latimer Road.
Thank you, Chairman. So the next item on tonight's agenda is the Public House at 274 Latimer Road. There are two applications at the site that we'll be considering tonight, which will be presented separately. I draw members' attention at this stage to the addendum report, which highlights an additional representation that was received following the publication of the officer's report. The application site is a three-storey building located on the corner of Latimer Road and Latimer Place. And this is an aerial image of the site for context. The building is in use as a public house at the ground and basement floors, with ancillary residential units located on the upper floors. Planning permission is sought in this case for the installation of a pavement vault light well with a painted black metal grille above at street level to the side elevation of the building. The proposal also includes the installation of black metal railings to the front forecourt area, but it is noted that the railings are existing and therefore this element of the proposal is retrospective. This slide shows the location of the proposed light well and grille, which is located in the same position as the pre-existing light well that has since been infilled. And this slide shows the railings to the front, which are existing but are being proposed tonight. Officers have concluded that the proposed development would preserve the character, appearance, and significance of the building and wider conservation area, and that the proposals would ensure good living conditions for neighbouring properties are maintained, and that the proposal would have an acceptable impact on the local highway. The officer's recommendation is therefore to grant permission, and this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Can we hear from Henry Peterson, please? And it's 3 minutes for this, and then obviously there's a second case which is separate.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here as the chair of the Neighbourhood Forum for the area and the St Helens Residents Association. The two applications tonight are part of a long-running saga about a building which is the sole surviving pub in a neighbourhood. I don't have time to cover the full backstory. We accept on advice from the Council's enforcement staff there's been no breach of planning controls as yet as a result of reconfiguration of the building and a cellar conversion. The pub is not in operation at the moment. We initiated a meeting with Wentworth Anderson held yesterday. As a result, we have had further assurances and some new evidence of commitment to reopen the ground floor and basement as the volunteer pub. Our forum's long-held position has been to support the reopening of the building as a successful and well-managed pub. The entire building is classed sui generis for use as a pub, with no permission for separate C3 residential accommodation on the first and second floors. You may be advised by officers that this background is not relevant or material to the applications before you this evening. We argue that you should be allowed to consider this and the next application in their claimed context as works needed to achieve the continued use of the building as a pub. There are several questions on which local residents will be glad to hear responses from the applicants in this formal setting. Is there firm evidence that the use of the basement as a commercial kitchen and an area accessed by the public for the toilets to the pub complies with all building regulations, fire safety requirements and flood risk measures? No planning application was submitted for this cellar conversion. Why does the reasonable exception statement submitted with this application say smoke detection and fire alarms are already installed as appropriate for a small-scale residential modification when this project is not that, but is a pub? Why are the basement plans submitted with this application before you less detailed than those provided to the licence hearing a year ago? Why do the descriptions on the applications, crucial in legal terms, not spell out that these are works to further continued use of the building as a pub? Could opaque glass blocks be used in place of an open grille if the aim is to allow daylight into a commercial kitchen? This would avoid narrowing the pavement in Latimer Place. Can the committee be assured that the proposed works are not a forerunner to an application for change of use of the upper floors of the whole building or the upper floors? And why does the building feature on the Wentworth Anderson website as a property ostensibly available with details of 2 flats, each with 2 bathrooms? These seem strange features for ancillary landlord accommodation. The officer report assesses it in narrow terms. Emphasis is placed on the heritage case for railings when these have never been in place before. We think it more relevant to consider whether spiked railings are a sensible way of demarcating a private forecourt to a pub. In our objection letter, we suggested 3 additional conditions. On the basis of assurances given to us, we do not see why the applicant should have a problem in accepting these. We advised the applicants yesterday that we will be applying to renew the registration of the whole property as an asset of community value. The 2019 registration...
We are now at 3 minutes.
Expired last October. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have Jeremy begin, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here as an architect and I represent the applicant Wentworth Anderson. I'll remind the committee that we're only here to consider the contents of the applications in hand, which is for the retrospective introduction of decorative railings and a small proposed section of grills to the pavement on Latimer Road. Despite suppositions by St Quentin's Neighbourhood Forum and a concerted campaign from immediately adjoining properties around the pub to try and keep this public house closed, we are committed to opening this public house. We've spent considerable money securing a new licence for the property since having acquired it in 2023, having secured the licence in August 2024. We've conducted extensive marketing and spent considerable sums of money in refurbishing the basement, in reorganising the public house, and we bring to you today some other small components which help support its good management. From the officer's report, the conservation team and highways team are satisfied that these minor proposals can be supported, both preserving the appearance of the conservation area and placing no burden on highway safety. The technical detail of the grille has been considered by the council's engineering consultees, FM Conway, and deemed satisfactory for safe implementation. Despite what has been raised by the other speaker to confuse the simple matters in hand, the approval of these railings will not trigger the wholesale loss of the public house. They will not lead to the erosion of the community space. The grille will not cause the last remaining pub in Latimer Road to suffer financial ruin. These small measures are supported by your officers and towards the safe and they support the beneficial, they're beneficial towards the safe operation of the premises, and the enclosure of this licensed forecourt supports the management protocols that we've had enshrined in the premises license. They will contribute to the continued successful running of the public house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Denko.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to assure Mr. Biggins, if I may ask you, I don't know anybody who doesn't want that pub to open. That was my pub, and I'm very, very keen for it to be reopened. I don't think nobody has said to me, and I live very nearby, that they don't want it open. Everybody wants it reopened, but it must be compliant. So the issues that I'm most concerned about, perhaps you could reassure me on. One of them is about the grill. Between the kitchen, there was never any kind of kitchen there before. It was a grotty old cellar. Between the kitchen and the street, there seems to be a void, as it were. So if there was, on the unfortunate case that there was a fire in the kitchen, which happens, it would basically be supplying oxygen, and the fire and smoke would erupt through there. There's no fire stop. That's my concern. The fire would not be contained if that happened, which it does on occasion from kitchens. So perhaps that's one of my questions. I've heard lots of concerns about the railings, which I don't think are particularly beautiful. They look a bit, I don't know. But anyway, that's another matter. It's how you contain your customers is something else. But I do think they're second grade, actually, which was a lot of concern. So that is the fire stop in particular that I'm concerned about between the kitchen and the street. Obviously, there's a suggestion that glass blocks should be in, which is quite common. The idea that, it's a reinstatement, that it was a reinstatement perhaps of something that wasn't as safe as it should have been in the past, but there was certainly no kitchen there before. And also, just as background, perhaps you could tell me, because it has been a question for all of us, about how you're getting on with getting planning permission for the 2 flats above, because there was a landlord ancillary, and then, as we all know, because we used a restaurant and kitchen on the upper floor. So perhaps as a background, you could let us know that, and explain the issue about the grill and the lack of fire stops.
To respond to the fire stopping, we have full building regs approval for the works implemented and as proposed in relation to the grill. It's a common feature and is a component of the approved document Building Regulations Part B, which permits for smoke evacuation from cellars to the street frontage. The glass bricks often proposed have break glass opportunities within them for the fire brigade to evacuate smoke from cellars. So the fire stopping at that point, it's not really an issue in that respect, and it's actually something that the fire brigade would typically seek to be able to extract smoke from basements at that point. So fire stopping's not generally required.
Sorry, you've had advice from the fire brigade about that?
Yes, we consulted the London Fire Brigade over a year ago with regards to this. But
on this particular issue? Yeah.
On all matters of the public house. And equally, as I say, it's a component of the building regulations that smoke evacuation is possible from basements to the street frontage.
Right. And about the other issue, which is the backgrounds and background information?
So background to the public house, we've conducted an extensive marketing operation. It's not been an easy pub to market, with the concerted effort from some complainants who've unfortunately made it seem like quite an inhospitable spot to trade in. We now have an excellent operator poised to take on the pub. And they will be taking on the lease for the whole
planning permission for the 2 separate flats.
They will be taking on the lease for the entire property.
Yes, and I understand that. My question was specifically about the planning permission for 2 separate flats.
There's no, we've not sought separate flats.
So you don't have planning permission for that? This is just what I was trying to get clarity.
No, we don't have separate flats in the property. They're a component of the landlord's ancillary accommodation.
But, I mean, it is in the marketing material which has been circulated, it actually says that there are 2 separate flats.
That's an historic error that was from old intentions that have been corrected. It's no longer on the website.
I was just going to say this is helpful to have in the open, and I think we've heard that this is still ancillary accommodation. They're not new units. Is that Is that what you're clearly
that's
telling us?
And the entire public house is to be leased under a single lease to the operator who will be trading from the basement to the top. That's their lease.
Okay, right. And obviously, if people have a concern about that, which is not for planning tonight, but that's something that enforcement could look at, and you have satisfactory information about that. Okay.
To focus on the matters.
Exactly. So we can focus on that. We've heard it clearly from you, and that should satisfy for the purposes of focusing on this application. Is that okay? All right. Any other questions to applicants or objector? Otherwise, questions to officers. In fact, maybe we can just start on that. We've heard about the fire and railings and others, which seem to have been addressed. And just on the point, because it does come up quite a lot in the objections about it, is there an enforcement case, or has anyone asked for an enforcement case on the creation of new units and potential change in viability of the pub by taking away trading areas?
Thank you, Chairman. Given the fire issues have been addressed, I won't go into great detail there, but I would just note, as a side note, that any internal works wouldn't require planning permission either. So the installation of a kitchen internally wouldn't in itself require planning permission, and therefore wouldn't in itself be subject to planning policy. Any external manifestation, would require planning permission, and that's what they're applying for. That's the next application, the flue. To address the flats, yes, I believe there was an enforcement case open previously, but this was closed. I believe, if I said exactly when, I'd be guessing, but it's fairly recently, because the enforcement officers concluded that there was no change of use, and that the accommodation, they were comfortable that the accommodation was ancillary. However, there are other enforcement cases live at the site. I don't have the details of those, but our enforcement team are aware of the site and the ongoing issues, and they are currently working on them. I hope that's...
Thank you. Any questions? All right. So the application is quite limited. Those were other areas that are of great interest locally. But in this particular matter on this application, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? And those against? Okay, so this application N103 is granted, and then we'd move on to the second application at this site, which is the extract.
Thank you, Chairman. So the next item on tonight's agenda is the other application at the site. I just draw members' attention again to the addendum report, which highlights an additional representation received following the publication of the officer's report. You already know the context, so I'm going to skip straight to the proposal. Planning permission in this case is sought for the replacement of the existing kitchen extract flue at the rear elevation of the building with a new flue that would now extend down into the ground floor. The existing condenser unit within the rear courtyard used for cooling is also proposed to be replaced. This slide gives some context of the rear elevation and the existing flue that is to be replaced on the right-hand side. And here are the existing and proposed rear elevation, again showing the existing and proposed flue. Officers have concluded that, subject to conditions, the proposed development would preserve the character and appearance and significance of the conservation area, and that the proposals would ensure good living conditions for neighbouring properties, and that the proposals would have an acceptable impact on air quality within the borough. The officer's recommendation is therefore to grant, and this concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And from objectors, we've got Henry Peterson, Maria Williams, and Raphael Lai. Can I see where? Right, they're there, thank you. And you've got 3 minutes between you. Have you worked out who's leading? Is it you'll speak for the 3 minutes? Okay, thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I've lived here since 2014 and have a severe respiratory problem since childhood. My bedroom window is directly beside the proposed flue. I sleep with that window and my roof terrace door open to get much needed fresh air. Until now, the air has been clean. No smells, no noise, no working flue. My roof terrace is my only outdoor space. It is where I sit with my friends on a daily basis and where I'm able to breathe freely. If this flue is approved, that space will be filled with fried fumes and noise from generators. My only source of fresh air will be taken away. Your local plan policy, CL5, requires protection of both internal living conditions and external amenity spaces. My terrace is exactly that, and it will be destroyed by this tall flue. I am scared for my health and for my recovery. Please do not take away the only fresh air I have. This is a high flood risk area, and the context has been ignored by the planning department by considering a flue from the basement. It is a public house, and pubs are explicitly protected under policy TC5. The council has a duty to safeguard them as a valued community facilities. In addition, policy SI1 on social infrastructure requires the council to assess community uses in an integrated way. Fragmented approvals fall short of this obligation. To comply with both TC5 and SI1, the current application should, at the very least, be deferred until there is a single comprehensive submission covering the totality of works at 274 Latimer Road, including basement excavations and the conversion of upper floors into flats, which has already resulted in the loss of the former restaurant.
Thank you. And just in case that's an issue, maybe officers could bring up, if there is such a thing, an image of where this outside space is in relation to the vent. It may come up. And okay, now Jeremy Biggin, please.
In response to that, I'm not entirely sure where Mr. Lay lives, but I suspect it's at the terrace at immediately adjoining premise, which does not benefit from planning permission on the roof terrace. The public house has had its kitchen extract in situation for at least 20 years. We are proposing the introduction of a new kitchen extract flue system, which will perform considerably better than the existing flue system. It will reduce fumes, it will reduce noise, it will reduce vibration. It is a better system. We could, potentially if we wish to, recommence use of the existing equipment on site, legitimately, at the moment. However, as part of the extensive refurbishment of this public house, we've proposed these essential upgrades to ensure this is a fresh start for the public house and a fresh start for the neighbours as well. The hostile campaign of objections, many AI generated and under repeat submissions, seek to prevent this pub from reopening. Meanwhile, the applicant has spent hundreds of thousands of pounds to deliver this public house back to the community. The voices of a noisy and motivated group of near neighbours should not prevent the delivery of this pub back to the community. The premises licence conditions contain in this require the serving of a substantial food operation until 10 o'clock every night. If we do not secure planning approval for this particular application, for the kitchen extract, there may be no beer cooled, no food served, and no public house reopened. It's essential that we have this approved to get it back to the community. I do hope you'll view this and the recommendation of the officers who have scrutinised this and the previous applications in great detail to ensure Latimer Road will once again have a public house.
Thank you. Councillor Idris, please.
My question is to the objector. The existing extractor, is it a problem? Is it causing you any health problems?
No.
It's not causing you any problems, but you're concerned the new one will.
Yeah.
Even after knowing that the new one might be more modern, less.
But the current one is not in use.
Sorry?
The current one is not in use.
It's not in use, so there is no extractor, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Dencode.
Thank you. It's almost impossible to see the images here, but I do know the site quite well. sorry, Mr. Biggin, as far as I understand, the issue about the flue, and it says the proposal is existing cellar, cooling and kitchen extraction, and then lower down it says extending to the ground floor. So I'm a bit confused if it's the ground floor or the cellar that it's going down to, the kitchen in the cellar. I'm not quite sure about that. But as far as I understand with flues, I mean, this is slightly different. It's got like a cowl. It bends over at the top, whereas previously it looked a bit taller and wasn't bent down into the neighbours' windows. So is there a way of ensuring that that flue reaches up as far high as possible and it doesn't apparently point into the neighbour's bedroom window?
It neither points into the neighbour's unlawful terrace, nor will it not be better than the
Mr.
current
Biggin,
situation.
you know, you talk about hostility from the people who live so close with no outdoor space, but actually, you know, you have used the word hostile, and actually, I don't think it helps to attack the neighbours for whether or not their terrace is, which isn't on the page, like whether or not that is illegal, which I think they've been using for a long time. But my concern is that the flue reaches high enough up that it isn't going to affect any kind of space, because as you know, the two homes either side of it have almost no outdoor space at all, apart from the roof terrace of the Latimer Road property.
It is an extremely tight site, and we've done our best to improve the flue in every way we can. It's now acoustically lined. It has additional silencers. It has a better fan. We've moved the fans inside the building. It now has full filtration system on it, where previously it didn't. There's an acoustic enclosure around the cellar cooling unit in the yard. It's a very tight site. We've done what we can to deliver the best system possible in this location. And it's a licensing condition that we serve food. So we have done the best we can to try and improve this.
Okay, and just I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that was picked up in this second application. The issue about the flooding, I think it says that there is no flooding risk, and I assure you there is. You know, I'm the local councillor of that area, and nearly all the properties along there with basements have been flooded quite extensively and several times. So that, you know, that is an issue. So I'm sure you've tanked your basement, but anyway. Yeah, so it's really the concern, I think, is about the flue, and obviously the neighbours who have every right to be concerned about the lawful use of the pub, which, as I say, everybody wants open, but it must be compliant and neighbour-friendly.
Indeed, and we've worked very hard to give the best system in that back area. It's going to be considerably better than as it had operated for the last 20 years. It will now be a much better system than that.
May I just ask the applicant, looking at the very detailed list of conditions, if this application is granted, these look quite tough. Do similar conditions exist on the existing extract?
There are no conditions on the existing extract whatsoever.
Right, that's helpful to understand. So basically, if this is granted tonight, this will be a lot, very strongly controlled by these conditions. Whereas, right at the moment, if you wanted to re-switch on an old version of an extract, then there would be no control.
Exactly.
I mean, other than general legislation, there'd be no specific conditions controlling it.
They non-exist at present.
That's helpful. Thank you. Okay, questions to officers. Maybe I just start on the conditions. What we're seeing here. This is typically a full suite of conditions, and we've heard from. I don't know whether we can see it on there, but just by the image, the vent that is proposed is going to rise above the building level, so it won't be sort of discharging onto the objector's window. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Chairman, it will terminate 1 metre above the eaves.
Sorry, one metre above the neighbour's window or 1 metre above the building?
1 meter above the building's eaves. So if, from the eaves where it terminates at the bottom of there. I can't really show my finger, but can you see my cursor by any chance? It'll be 1 meter from there.
And where is it in relation to the neighbor's window?
I must apologize, I don't know exactly where the neighbor's window is, but if it's likely across the terrace, as noted, I think that's correct. But I don't have the exact distance, to be honest.
Thank you. Councillor Ratty.
Is that new proposed when looking towards the sky? Is that just to improve, sort of, I don't know, the smoke or the environment conditions? Is that why it was proposed? Thanks.
The reason it terminates up, I'm not entirely sure if that's a design or a functional requirement. But I do know that these, the extraction equipment has been designed to be less noisy than the older generation of equipment. There's conditions around noise as well, so it is going to be quite tightly controlled. But there's also conditions around the hours of use of this equipment and extract systems and odor measures, so odor control measures. So that has been considered.
So any breach would be enforceable?
That's correct, in the same way as normal.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to move to a decision? Okay, so the facts are laid out in front of us and in the report. It does seem to me that, that there's a much stronger control through all of these conditions than would exist if it wasn't, if the old extract could be used. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? Can I see those against? Okay, so that application is granted. Can we move now, please, to 47 Gordon Place?
Thank you, Chairman. So the next item on tonight's agenda is 47 Gordon Place. And this is an application, again, to discharge a condition of a former planning permission. I draw members' attention to the addendum report, which highlights some minor amendments to the officer's report. For context, the extant permission to which this condition relates was for the proposed use of the roof of the rear ground floor level extension as a roof terrace, along with associated works. The full description is on the screen. This application is related to condition 4 of that permission, which requires details of the obscured all-frosted glass screen along the northern boundary of the terrace. And this condition requires this to be obscured or frosted and requires it to measure approximately 1.8 meters as measured from finished floor level. The location of the glass screen can be seen on these drawings, particularly on the images on the bottom, sections BB. And here are some details, again, of that terrace. Of that screen. And these are some images of what it would look like. This is not the site itself, these are examples. So this concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have an objector, Manav Puri. Just looking around to see. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. RBKC identified the harm of this development, that anyone standing on the roof at number 47 could look directly into the adjacent property through 3 windows and a skylight. To mitigate this, RBKC imposed the requirement for the privacy screen and set its specification under condition 4. Such was its importance, RBKC, unlike a standard condition, required the applicant to agree to the condition up front in order to secure consent. Despite agreeing, the applicant failed to submit details or install the screen at the time of the build works, raised the height of the finished floor, exacerbating the harm 12 months later, used the roof terrace on a daily basis in breach of condition, and on the 3-year anniversary of consent, fixed a bamboo to the trellis fence in an attempt to circumvent the condition. Turning to the submitted details, these do not comply with condition 4 and do not provide privacy, as has been evidenced from that period in breach. The planning officer report does not address the objections or the submitted evidence from the directly affected adjacent property My Home, focusing on less detailed objections. The submitted details present issues in respect of 4 areas: location, height, gaps in the screen, and materials. On location, the condition requires the screen to be on the resulting finished floor in the inside parts of the terrace, to quote directly. The submission shows it on the parapet wall and set in from the edge of that wall, creating a ledge that someone could stand on and step on to look over the screen into My Home. This has happened numerous times during the period in breach. The screen must be on the floor or, if allowed to be on the wall, must be flush with the edge of it to remove any ledge. On height, the submission shows a screen of 1.5 metres on the wall. The condition requires the screen to be 1.8 metres as measured from the finished floor. Indeed, here it says that the final height needs to be determined on submission, and indeed a screen taller than 1.8 metres is required, as one of the 3 windows identified is to a bedroom on a half-raised landing. To cover even half of this window, the screen must be at the height of the existing trellis fence, covering all open squares along its full length, which is approximately 195 to 205 centimetres. Furthermore, evidence from the period in breach appears to show that a person can see above that trellis fence into my property. Therefore, it must be assessed whether a taller screen than that is required. On reviewing this evidence, the Director of Planning, Amanda Reid, confirmed that any screen approved by RBKC would be tall enough to address those same sightline issues of the raised window and the raised floor, but the officer hasn't followed that approach. On gaps, the submitted details show a multi-panel balustrade instead of a single screen with 20mm gaps between them. A privacy screen cannot have gaps, in particular as the roof has direct line of sight to 2 windows identified as harmed by the development. Again, during the period in breach, number 47 have often looked through the gaps in the illegally appended bamboo screen into My Home. The screen must be continuous or single panel, or if multi-panel, have no gaps. On materials, finally, condition 4 requires frosted glass. The submission shows opaque glass. Opaque glass blocks most light and significantly more than the required frosted glass, which will negatively impact My Home. The screen must be, as required by the condition, frosted glass and not opaque glass, and it must also be confirmed that the screen is glass and not another material. In conclusion, the submitted details do not comply with the terms of the condition that RBKC imposed and that the applicant agreed to, and fail to provide privacy, as has been evidenced by the period in breach. I'm therefore asking committee to ensure condition 4 is applied in line with the terms and intent of intent of the condition in respect of location, height, gaps, and materials.
We have gone over 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Henrietta Walters. Hi. And you also have 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yes, so I'm Henrietta Walters, the architect acting on behalf of the applicant, who is the resident at number 47. Just to confirm, this application relates to the installation of a frosted glass privacy screen along the boundary wall with number 45. The screen has been designed to meet the specific requirements of condition 4, which requires a height of approximately 1.8 meters from the finished floor level to protect the privacy of the neighbours. The proposed screen is a frameless frosted glass balustrade system, which is approximately 1.5 meters in height when measured from the parapet wall and ranges between 1.8 and 1.9 meters when measured from the sloping decked level. It is positioned behind the existing timber trellis fence at number 45, which the timber trellis fencing continues to serve as the primary visual and privacy barrier. The balustrade is set back 70 mil from the edge of the parapet wall on my client's side at number 47, which effectively prevents any opportunity for climbing or overlooking because it's a very, very tiny ledge gap. The revised proposals which fully addresses previous concerns relating to privacy, overshadowing, and visual impact. We also took and had numerous conversations with the planning officer. The screen is discreetly located and has minimal visibility from neighbouring properties. The frosted glass allows light to pass through whilst maintaining privacy, and once again it sits behind the existing timber trellis height of number 45 and does not contribute to overshadowing. A sample of the frosted glass has been submitted to the planning department, which they're in receipt of, and it confirms its confirming its appropriate level of opacity. It should also be noted that the privacy screen has been designed by a specialist company who specialize in glaze systems, and they will be responsible for the supply and installation. One of the objections had made was with regards to building control approval as part of the condition for approval, as part of the discharge of condition 4, and it must be noted that building control should not be, is not relevant to this application, nor is there a need for the frosted glazing to have any sort of self-cleaning coating, and nor should the resident at number 45 have access to the actual screen, which belongs to the property of number 47, and therefore will be kind of intruding on someone's space.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And look, I do understand that this has been quite a long-running and involved issue, and I understand that local councillors have sort of tried hard to bring this to a resolution. We are where we are, and the application is now in front of us to approve the condition, and we'll obviously listen to officers because this is sort of a technical matter as well. Questions? Councillor Idris.
My question is to the objector. From what the architect has said, it seems like they are using frosted glass, and there are no gaps in that you were concerned about. So, are you satisfied now the things you're concerned about have been addressed?
Thank you for your question. I'm afraid quite a lot of what was said was incorrect. So in respect of gaps, you can see the image on the screen where you can see the 20 mil gaps in between the 3-panel screen. This is direct line of sight to 2 windows. Again, the planning officer identified the 3 windows and the skylight as being affected. There are gaps in that 3-panel screen. The requirement was for a screen. I guess the assumption was a single screen. If you're going to have 3 panels that look directly at 2 windows and a skylight, they can see directly into my property. And again, I would like to stay entirely constructive, but the bamboo screen that was erected, which has much smaller gaps, has been peered through on a regular occasion directly into my windows. In respect of frosted glass, I'm afraid to say again it's incorrect. The requirement was for frosted glass. The manufacturer that supplies this product, which I've provided evidence for in my objection, only supplies opaque glass. They don't supply frosted glass. Their only 2 choices on their website are for clear glass or opaque glass. So there is an image which should be in the councillor's pack which shows that the only choices are opaque glass. I've also had a conversation with the manufacturer who has confirmed this. The manufacturer has also confirmed that, yes, as per the images, it doesn't allow light to diffuse, as is the intent of frosted glass. Frosted glass is translucent and allows light to diffuse but provides privacy. Opaque glass blocks light, and this will block light to my property.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Dencode.
Yes, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Perry. I don't know if you went while looking at the website of this manufacturer or anything else, because clearly this has been going on for quite some time. There may be some way of binding or closing the gaps which you are so concerned about. So, if it was indeed proper frosted glass and those gaps were somehow sealed or closed or whatever, would that satisfy you then?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's in respect of the gaps. If there was a possibility of closing the gaps among the frameless screen, that absolutely would satisfy it, because the issue is that someone can look through gaps, and a privacy screen is not effective. In respect of frosted glass, yes, again, if it was translucent diffused glass, which is the definition of frosted glass, as opposed to a milky white finish, as you saw in the images of opaque glass, then that would absolutely satisfy it. Okay. I may, if I just in case there's not a follow-up question, there were two further elements, though, which are key. Again, evidence from the period in breach. One of those is that the screen should be either on the floor or further
we have heard, you've said all that, so we've got to keep things moving.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. The height.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Retty, and then we'll move to officer questions.
Yeah, you just heard from the objector, so would you be happy to sort of discharge?
Sorry, can I just explain, because I think it might be, it's clear on the elevations, unfortunately they're very small, but essentially you have the 20 mil gap, that is 20 mil, which is tiny, and in front of that, you've got a timber trellis fence. So in all likelihood, where the 20 mil gap is, you may have a piece of timber. So I just don't understand what the issue is.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll move to officer questions now, because this is, maybe I'll just start with an overall question, which is, you consider, tens or maybe even hundreds of cases of privacy protection on balconies and terraces. What is being proposed here, from my experience sitting in this chair, is quite normal, in fact, probably a little stricter than what we see day in, day out on these sorts of conditions. Can you say, in relation to the specific objections that we've heard, how officers have been satisfied that the information does allow this condition to be discharged?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, in short, I do agree. It is fairly standard to require a privacy screen of some form. This condition was very specific, which is a little bit unusual. But if I go to the wording of the condition, just for clarity, it requires obscured or frosted glass, so obscured / frosted. The reason for that being so it's not see-through. And measuring approximately 1.8 meters tall when measured from the floor. Again, that means that there is some form of screening taller than the usual eyesight. That's where the 1.8 comes from. But if I go back to the drawing itself, we can see that it would be 1.9 in some areas and 1.8 in others because of the slope from the finished floor level. The screen itself is only 1.5, but that's sitting above a parapet wall, which wouldn't be see-through in itself. So the point being that there is screening up to a height of 1.8 or 1.9 meters. So yes, I believe it satisfies the condition.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dencode.
Thank you, Chair. So are we saying this has to be frosted, not opaque? Because there's clearly a difference. I didn't really understand until tonight what the difference is. So, frosted so that the light can be absorbed, can pass through it, not opaque, which is like something solid. And the other issue, which is the architect was talking about it being a tiny space and there might be a bit of wood behind it. Can we insist that there is some kind of filler between the frosted glass, otherwise there's no privacy. So can we insist on those two things, that it is definitely frosted and that the gaps are filled? Can we insist on that?
Can I just oh, sorry.
We've moved to the officer questions now, so I was actually just indicating if you could keep your microphone off now. Yes, please.
Thank you for the questions. So I've left the wording of the condition up on the screen, and it says obscure. Oh, sorry. I wouldn't either. Sorry, I would need a But it says, the exact wording, I'll read it word for word when I go into the detail section of it, obscured / frosted glass, measuring approximately 1.8 meters. So it's the obscuring or frosting, the way I read the condition, which means it doesn't necessarily need to be frosted, but it does need to be obscured. That's how I read that condition.
Yeah, and it's in, it's in 4.4 in the report, so we got.
I see that, but there is a difference between obscure and frosted, and we're asking for frosted. Can we
well,
insist on
the
it?
condition says obscured / frosted. It doesn't say frosted on its own.
But can we insist that it is frosted? Because there is a difference.
But the condition, look, the condition is what we're asking is it complied, and the condition says both words, so we can't rewrite that condition.
Yeah, the chairman's right. We can't rewrite the condition at this stage. We can only assess it in accordance with the details. But to answer the second question, given that this is an application to discharge condition details, we can't add further conditions to a condition, so we'd have to either approve or refuse the details in front of us.
Thanks.
May I?
No, I'm afraid, as I've said to everyone today, and we have a set of rules, there are no contributions from the floor once we move on to officer questions.
Could I address the height
No,
issue? Sorry.
It doesn't help. We're trying to resolve things now. All right, any other questions to officers? Okay, so where I think we've got to is we've got a very strict yes or no to this condition. Does the committee approve the condition? We've got an officer recommendation. We've heard a lot of detailed arguments. Can I see those in favour of approving this condition? And can I see those against? Thank you. So that condition is approved. And look, it has been a difficult case. I want to thank both sides and councillors for trying to resolve it. We have got to this point now, and I hope that neighbourly relations can be preserved and enhanced, as we sometimes say on this committee. Thank you. That case is decided. We're now moving on to the first of the speaker cases, which I don't think we see. Is Stella Mann here or not? No. Okay, so we're moving to 26 Gledhow Gardens, flat 6, and there are no speakers on it because there is no objector, therefore there's no applicant ability to speak. Is that okay? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I would like to bring members' attention to the addendum report. This application is seeking planning permission for an extension at the lower level to a kitchen and some other alterations to windows. There are no speakers this evening, so if members got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the papers from this? Just having a look to see if I've got anything. So for this one, just from my own looking at the diagrams, this kitchen extension at a low level is similar or very similar to other neighbouring extensions. I think in 6.4 it talks about there are other similar extensions in the immediate locality.
Yes, that's correct. There's one 2 doors down, I believe, from the application site, and there's some other in the area.
Any questions? All right. So officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? 26 Gardens is granted. Thank you. Marley House.
Thank you, Chairman. So the next item on tonight's agenda is Marley House on St. Anne's Road. This is a Section 73 application to amend the size and type of the previously approved AC units on the side of the building. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I see this is with us today because it's our borough application, but there are no objections. Any questions or councillors happy to move to a vote? Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. Chepstow Corner, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for advertisement consent. I just draw members' attention to the addendum to make some minor clarifications, but the recommendation is to grant. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I mean, my own comment, just looking at the papers, is that even though the drawing of the dog looks very big, because it's basically a black line on a white page, I'm looking in the pack, there's actually a photograph of an existing, another venue in the borough, it looks like, or somewhere close by, of the dog and cat picture, which is actually looks like it's a translucent sort of transfer on the glass, so it's very faint, sort of almost an etching rather than a black lines on a white, so it's much less stark than in photographs. Councillor Idris.
Actually, there is one in Brompton Road, exactly the same company, and they're very nice and tasteful. So, yeah, I don't see any problem with that.
Yes, that was my thought, and it's a pleasing thing with all the other commerciality around, is to find something that's helping service local people's pets. Any other questions? Okay, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? Thank you. That is granted. All Saints College, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another Section 73 application, but it's also a listed building, so there's an associated listed building consent. Oh no, sorry, I apologise. That's the next one. But again, it is a Section 73 for what officers consider to be relatively minor changes to the extent permission. So the recommendation is to grant, but happy to take any questions.
And again, there are no objections. This is just here because it's a local school. Any questions? Okay, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? All Saints is granted. 68 Kensington Park Road.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for several extensions to the rear of the property at 68 Kensington Park Road, all of which already benefit from planning permission, the only difference being the proposed mansard. There were objections to this, but the objectors withdrew to speak tonight, and the recommendation is to grant. Happy to take any questions. Oh, sorry, please, I apologise. I draw the members' attention to the addendum report, which makes some minor clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I mean, just looking at it, nearly all of what's on here is already granted, as officers have said, and there are other roof level extensions in the vicinity. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. Metropolitan Building Lots Road.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to bring members' attention to the addendum report. There are two applications, planning permission and advertisement consent for alterations to a shop front, doors, and different signage. The recommendation is to approve the planning permission for the shop front and advertisement consent for the signage. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. And there's also this is the shop front, and then there's at the same site. Are you going to talk differently about the second case, or is it together?
I've done them together, but
okay,
members will have to vote separate.
Yeah. Okay. Shop front. I think the images are helpful because it looks like what's being proposed is not radically different from the, sort of the prevailing line. Any questions? Okay. So on the first, which is the shop front alteration, officer recommendation to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. Same site. The application is for an internally illuminated fascia sign and one internally illuminated projecting sign. Officer recommendation to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. 7 Stamford Road, please.
Thank you. Again, I would like to bring members' attention to addendum report. This application is seeking planning permission for two-story extensions and alterations to the mansard roof and windows, changes to the light well and garden and associated works. The recommendation is to approve planning permission. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. Honey Lane House, please.
Thank you. This application, RBKC is the applicant, therefore the application is in front of members tonight. This application is seeking planning permission for replacement of existing windows with new windows and changes to the external and internal communal decorations. The recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Idris.
Are the previous windows PVC also?
Thank you for the question. I believe there is a mix of UPVC windows and metal windows already on the building. UPVC.
Can I just make a comment, Chair? I do have a visceral loathing for UPVC, as I think you know, but as it's a like-for-like replacement, I think we just have to go with it, unfortunately.
Thank you, and I note no objections from residents as well. So, officer recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour? That is granted. 125 Finborough, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this application has been submitted by RBKC for a replacement of windows, and those ones are metal to metal, like for like. The recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, like for like, no objections. Those in favour? That's granted. 123 Finborough.
Thank you. That's similar to the previous one, like for like, metal to metal replacement windows. RBKC is the applicant, and the recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
For consistency, those in favour? That's granted. Great Hall, Town Hall.
Apologies, I was getting swept up in that efficiency. So, thank you, Chairman. So the next item on tonight's agenda is the Great Town Hall. This is an application again for variation of a Section 73 variation to the green wall that's just outside this building. Officers consider it to be a very minor change, and therefore the recommendation is to grant permission. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Dent-Coad.
Thank you. I did try to understand the plans, and I'm not really sure. I literally walked past the green wall with an architect friend who's very up with these things, and was absolutely appalled at the sighting of it. So I'm not sure if we've changed the site of it. I couldn't work it out from the diagrams, if it's going to be in the same place, or if we're just, what's the score? I just couldn't understand what was happening.
No problem. That's so the position of the wall was originally granted slightly, when you're facing it, slightly to the right and around the corner. But it's been installed slightly to the left, so it's the location of the wall that's moved slightly from what.
So it's the same wall, the south-facing wall, which I've been told was a really stupid place to put a green wall. But there you go.
Yeah, it's in the same location, albeit around the corner as the building turns.
Okay.
I think if you look at the drawings,
it's going to cost us so much money to replace all that stuff all the time. It's just insane. But anyway, there we go. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Councillor.
Yeah, my question is why the movement? Why was it changed?
I don't believe we were given an explanation of that. I think that's how it was installed, and therefore they're applying to rectify it. Yes, I'm really sorry, but I don't have an explanation as to why.
I suppose in planning terms, we just have to say, is there any reason to not vary this? And we are where we are on it. So on that basis, with a recommendation to grant the variation, can I see those in favour? That is granted, and if there's no other business, that concludes the meeting tonight. Thank you.